Yeah, my name is Fionnbarra. I was born in Derry at 134 Bogside. They call every place now around here the Bogside. Um, it was one street ran from the abattoir down to Rosal Street and the junction of Leggy Road. There was always a fish and chip shop and a piggery and a brewery and a coal yard.
How many were in your family with your brothers and sisters?
Well, it wasn't until my mother died. She died in 99 or in 2007. We found it was 12. We always thought it was 11, but three had died off. Three had died very young. So that left us nine in the family. Um, two up, two down the bog side. Outside toilet, no bath. I mean, looking back now, you wonder how they managed, especially before the welfare state, when you had to buy books and things like that and uniform for schools. But
What
we're
what
look,
would you say was your role in the trouble, say the late '60s into the early '70s? What experiences do you remember most?
well, I became the secretary of the Derry Unemployed Action Committee, and the when there was a Patrick's Day parade in the early 50s, they were always attacked. It was a couple of years in a row they were attacked. The old Nationalist Party, Anti-Partition League, would try and march from the Diamond to the Guildhall, but they couldn't. They couldn't march. The reason I bring that in is because for about 12 years there was no kind of marches in Derry. And then in 1964, the people of Springtown Camp, they lived in Nissen huts, which were occupied by the American forces during the build up to D-Day. And the housing situation was so desperate, there was gradually people began to occupy it until it ended up with about 300 and I think about 307 or 8 families moved into the American camp. They had any heating, without toilets and without anything really. Eventually, they had a march in '64, but they moved in '46. And people were amazed that there was a march because every other march before was attacked. It had to be a silent march. And people then began to I can remember running out of the shops and the bookmakers' shops and the pubs, clapping the people once they realised what the march was all about. And there was placards referring to Little Rock. Anybody knows anything about the American politics and the segregation in America, we seen ourselves more or less like Ulster's white Negroes. In fact, that was the title of my first book. It was based on a speech I gave in the Guildhall. In other words, we compared ourselves with the people in South Africa under apartheid and the blacks in America. So there's an international feeling about that. You had the Vietnam War on at the time. So the unemployed movement became secretary of that, and then the Housing Action Committee. You had some marvelous women like Bridget Bond and Nellie Gorman, and the women really the backbone of the movement. But somehow the men always seem to end up in the photographs in the papers and all the rest. Although I'm as guilty as anybody being a man, but a lot of women were shy. They knew what they were fighting for, and so sometimes a woman kind of left it to the men. But Bridget Bond became the main spokeswoman. She was a very, very active woman. So um, in 1967, I was the only Derry person, a city-born person, that went to the founding member of the Civil Rights Movement. And that was in January 1967. And I was the youngest person there. So I would have been about, say, 22 then. I was born in 1944. Maybe 22, I going to say going on, but no, not nearly, going on for 20. No, I mean 22, the 22, 23 anyway. Um, so it was a lobby group up until the 5th of October. We had a march in Dungannon, and it ended up peacefully, although we weren't allowed into the square. But the square in Dungannon, they speak. and the police had blocked us and the page lights. They were sectarianising things in the day go. But civil rights was for everybody. That was our policy. And we had a lot of strong minded Protestants, like Ivan Cooper, who I spoke at his grave there just a couple of Thursdays ago. He just died at the end of June. You had Claude Walton, who was a solicitor, another Protestant. You had, funny enough, Billy Kelsaw. I didn't realise he was a Protestant until I went to his wake. When I went to his wake, the people going like that there. I said, what do you mean? I said, watch what you say, because there's a lot of these people down the Shankill Road. Now, I never knew he was a Protestant. So it just shows you, and I went on and paid my respects as usual, But you had Austin Campbell, who was a distant relative of the royal family. He was a major of some rank. And anyway, he thought that sitting down was even too militant, sitting down in Guildhall Square after the 5th of October. So I've just jumped a bit there, but the thing is, civil rights was founded, but on the 5th of October, the names I mentioned there was in relation to the Derry Citizen Action Committee, which emerged 4 days after 5th of October. And basically the thing was, there was Eamon McCann, Eamon Black. I always referred to them as the two Eamons, and myself were arrested next morning and were taken to the RUC barracks. In those days, they didn't call them police stations, they were called barracks. People referred to them as barracks, which is actually what they were, because the RUC were a paramilitary force. They were armed to the teeth. And even though there was no trouble, even during total peacetime, there was always armed to the teeth. And a very sectarian force. I mean, I would say that the vast majority, but I wouldn't say I know the vast majority were pro-unionist policemen and the minority Catholics. So on the 5th of October, I went along. I was always getting pulled in by D.A. McGimsey. It was called Ross McGimsey, and I nicknamed him Ross the Boss. Well, Ross the Boss used to pull me in every so often, and I would keep saying to him, why are you pulling me in? He says, oh, you wear the most hats. And I think he was referring also to my connection in the Republican movement. And he made it very, very, very clear to me. He said, the Minister of Home Affairs, William Craig, has told me to make it very clear to you, and they ask you the question, does the march go on or does it not? And depending on the answer, I will communicate this to the minister. So he says, is the march going ahead? I said, yes, the march going ahead. So they issued banning orders to Ian McCann, Ian Malach. They called him John Gallagher. He was a great Irish speaker and a great Irish teacher of the language, Gail Gorey, and myself. All four of us were on the list of the banning order. I give it to the Museum of Free Derry. And that day, because of McGimsey said, the DA said, well, I look forward to meeting you, he says, on the 5th of October. And I knew that DA McGimsey was not going to shake my hand or clap me in the back. So a man came to my door the night before. He was an Englishman, strange enough. And he says, I hear you've been threatened, And I said, well, that's just within the family. He was a distant relative. He says, here's a helmet. He says, I've drawn an eye in the back of it. He says, I think you're going to need eyes in the back of your head. So I went along to the march, and a lot of the civil rights leaders were very annoyed at me wearing a helmet until I explained to them. Now, the point is that they said there's going to be a peaceful march, and I said, I hope to God it is a peaceful march, but the way I felt threatened by the district inspector, and it was always a 1-to-1 when he met. He never had anybody else in the room. He had no sense of humour. There was no small talk with him about the weather or anything else. And he is the man on the film. Have you seen the film on the 5th of October? With a big stick hitting Martin Cowley. Martin was a reporter and he was holding up his press pass shouting, "Press, press." Made no difference whatsoever. Jerry Fitt was the first to be battened. So the point is that my sister Derry, she was on the march. My father and my mother was on the march. And of course, being one of the organisers, I was on the march too, right? So Derry went up the front of the march, and then she was reported that people were starting to make speeches. And Ivan Cooper appealed to the police. Ivan, God rest him. He appealed to the police and the people. He said, "Look, let there be a peaceful march here in Derry today. We're only marching for basic civil rights. And other people can march in the city, and why can't we, the majority? Why can't we march through our own streets?" You know? That was all ignored. But by the time Derry got in the middle of the march, where I was, the police had already started attacking. I mean, it was really brutal. And then people who knew me from the trade union movement pushed me in their cafe because they knew that, at this stage there was policemen pointing my direction, but somehow I became distracted and we ended up in a cafe and I took off the helmet and the glasses and went to the back of the cafe and pulled up a big menu and more or less just disguised ourselves. And we had a policeman came in with a big baton and the blood was dripping off it. And the anger and the bigotry in their faces, and it was unbelievable. You think that that somehow we were I know we were second class citizens, but we were treated like we were just, it was totally indiscriminate. Women on prams being attacked, pushing buggies they call them, and there was no mercy for woman, man, or child. So she waved down an ambulance and she said, "Look, I'm a radiographer. I've just finished my training as a radiographer. There's only one person out in the Gelvin Hospital, a colleague of mine, only one other person in that hospital. And they don't know what's happening here." And they pulled her aboard and the ambulance man pulled her aboard. He says, "Young lady," says, "do you know?" He says, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're going to be in for a long bloody night." Anyway, the point is that, she said it was like a war zone. She's ready. She done not one that likes giving interviews, but she has spoken on radio about this and give it one talk during the Civil Rights 50th anniversary, which was just coming to an end now, the 50th anniversary of 68. She x-rayed just over 40 skulls, and her colleague also x-rayed another 40. And when she walked in, the colleague says to her, "This is your day off. You shouldn't be here at all." She says, "You don't know what's coming in that door now," she says. And one of the first men on the door was Jerry Fitt, who was the MP, who was in our house with other delegates. And there was MPs come over from London. There was the Kerrs and Mrs. Kerr, the husband and wife were MPs. I forget the third MP. But they were untouched. But Mrs. Kerr had been in Chicago during the Civil Rights March, and her eyes were so badly affected she had to wear dark glasses. And she was there that day, on the 5th of October. And Jerry Fitt says, the sister says, "Oh my God," says, "would you ever think that when we're all having breakfast in your house?" It really wasn't breakfast. It was sandwiches and a couple of hot, dirty sausages. Our family were all in the butchering trade. And you'd be x-raying me in the day. And the next person on them was maybe not the next, but in that line was Martin Cowley, who was the journalist who explained, he's the one on that film where the cap falls off of D.A. McGinty. He made it. Little did they think that this was going to go all over the world. But one RT man, a very brave RT man, when the water wagons came along, they turned the jets up in the windows where they could see the cameramen. So he decided to come down at street level, and he took it. He got the real action that day, and it's now in public record. So 4 days later, the Derry Citizen Action Committee was set up in the City Hotel. That was our unofficial headquarters, right beside the Guildhall, you know. The provost later on bombed it. Why they had done that, I don't know. It was a great meeting centre. We used it as the unofficial headquarters, and we held public meetings out in the square, but private meetings and small lectures inside the hotel. And then the word media had come to Derry, like even from Japan. I mean, unbelievable the media that came. So next morning, three was arrested, taken to the barracks, and of course charged with organising an illegal march, etc., etc. But it was they who made it illegal. You know, we'd applied, we had filled in the forms and all the rest. But that was more or less the build-up. That was the background. But from a lobby group, from a small lobby group, the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, there was only about 40 of us met in Belfast in '67. It became a mass movement. You know the old saying, a small acorn, the mighty oak will grow. And many a time, I mean, remember for years I was speaking in street corner meetings, things like that. Not the big crowds, maybe 20, 30 people. And, you know, people say to me, you know, journalists at the time says, how do you feel about the 5th of October? You know, that was that night in the City Hotel night. Says, things will never be the same again, never be the same again. How do you feel about it? And I said, I feel euphoric because the bubble has burst. I feel I've great sympathy. I said, what about all the people that have been battened? I said, look, I know more than you about what's going on and how many people are battened. Because I have a sister in Alton Galvin Hospital now tending for them. And the police that night blocked the bridge. And most of the people in the Alton Galvin came from this side of the river, the West Bank. In other words, they were nationalists. So they blocked that, which meant people had to go to Letterkenny. So the Derry Citizen Action Committee, I mean, you have to remember you had men like John Hume on it, who later became an MP, like Ivan Cooper. And he became Minister of Community Relations in 1974, was brought down by the Loyalist strike. John became not just an MP for Foyle, became the MEP for Europe. And I mean, the point is that I don't think he's got the full credit. With all the honours he's got, people don't know the exact. I mean, I work very closely with him. They'll never know half the things that John Hume did for this city. So he became a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And we had, you know, as I said, there was at least a quarter of the committee. There was no woman in the committee, mainly because there was if the Housing Action Committee had been invited, there had been women representatives. People keep bringing up about no woman, but if the Housing Action Committee had been, came along, you would have people like Bridget Bond, Katie O'Kane, Roisin Keenan, people like that. You know, people who were active at street level, they would have been on it. So, and then, you have, the old sexism comes into it again, like one man, one vote instead of one person, one vote. And, like, the poster, I designed the original poster. And I was in such a rush to get the poster up on the walls. I went to the journal and I designed the poster. I said, I want red and blue on it to appeal to the other side of the house. The products of working class people, unionist working class people. I don't like using religious terms. And the poster was rushed out. And in all my rush, I spelled meeting, it should be M-E-E-T-I-N-G. I spelled it M-E-T-T-I-N-G. Here's me like quite an educated fella, like. But that was how big a rush. And I went out and the printer didn't see it. Nobody seen me see it. It took me nearly 3 months to cop on that it was spelled wrong. So that brings you up to 69. So I don't know what you want to ask me about 69.
Before I forget, I mean, could you single out one or two uh, memories of, since she can't be here, of what your sister experienced? And when you do, if you could start off by saying my sister Deirdre, and and give a couple of examples besides the one you just did about the going to the hospital on her day off and that experience. So.
Well, the dirty Bible about my twin, you know what I mean, right? She just retired there at the end of May. She should have retired years ago. And she, like my mother, more or less played a role in the movement. Not they were in the background. You understand me? My mother died when 99. Like you know, my father was in. He was a decorated veteran of the War of Independence. His brother also was decorated, and some of the cousins went out and fought too. That was the bring about United Ireland during the War of Independence. And then they fought against the Free State, in other words, partition. So and when he died, like the house was full of priests, and when he was sick, none of them ever come near. And they both the mother and father were quite religious, but they weren't didn't ram it down your throat like, but they were, they went to their mass and their duties as they call it. So when he died, like I mean, there was all these priests in the front room, and I arrived back. Went out for a couple of drinks. This was the second day he was dead, and there was no room for me even to sit down. So I sat down in a big broad armchair, And I was sitting beside the old bishop's nephew, called Farn, Father Farn. And as far as I remember, he was a big shot later on in St. Columb's College. So I said to myself, what a bunch, Here you all are now. I said, the man was a regular communicant and all the rest. And when he should have been here when the man was living, with my view. I was always a wee bit anti-clerical, maybe too anti-clerical for some people. So I pointed him up the stairs. His remains was up the stairs. I says, where do you think he is now? Oh, your father was a great man. He said he defended the Nazareth house. He said, that was an orphanage and the nuns and the St. Columb's College and all. Oh, he said, your father's in heaven. I said, I very much doubt it. Well, he looked at me like this, and all the young priests looked over. He said, how could he be in heaven? I says, he's excommunicated him twice. First time they were fighting the Black and Tan, the auxiliaries. The second time they were fighting the Free State. Well, some of the young priests had to take out their hanky. Nearly choked themselves. But, it's all that hypocrisy. I'm against all that nonsense. But, I mean, the thing is that... but I'll give them their dues. On Bloody Sunday, they were out on the streets, Bishop Daly included. May he rest in peace. And Father Mulvey and Father Bradley, who's now left the church because of the whole celibacy thing and all that, and he's a married man now, but doing great work in the community. But Derry, like a lot of women, they did their bit. But she then decided she was heading off because of the trouble. Because if you were like I said, nationalist, you were oppressed. But if you were a Republican civil rights activist, you were 2 or 3 times more oppressed, coming in and wrecking your house and all the rest, pulling you in every so often. And she just couldn't stick all this. Because she's although a strong woman, and in some ways, but then in other ways a soft woman. So she went to 7 years in Jamaica and 20 years in Holland, and then came back some years ago.
Are you talking about your sister?
Yeah, Derry, yeah.
So could you just say that again? My sister Deirdre went off, came back.
Yeah, well, what she did was...
starting off by saying, my sister Deirdre, so we just have her name.
Yeah, my sister Deirdre, she's my twin sister. She was so upset at the repression being directed. Like, my family was suffering, but my family stood by me. Like, Ivan Cooper's family stood by him. And I mean, the Protestant people that took their stand. They deserve great honour, great honour, because I had a brother interned 1957 with Frankie Meenan, Ponchos O'Meenan, he's even Irish, for teaching Irish and speaking Irish. They weren't in Fionnbarra, and they weren't in Sinn Féin, they weren't in IRA, because I was in all those branches later on. And the point is that, so she was brought about that repression, like, and every time the police come and they raid us, I would always say to her, Derry, don't cry. Don't cry. Because when you cry, that's what they want. They want you to know that you're suffering. Take a wee drink of water. She couldn't stand it anymore, especially after what she's seen on the Galvin. So she went to Jamaica. I have a sister in Trinidad, and she became a senator right there. So my family is scattered all over the world. New York, London, Louth, Australia.
Do you have any particular memories about say, the Battle of the Bogside?
Yeah, well, we went along. When I say we, there was Hayden McKinney, and a man called McDade, I forget his first name. And Sammy Devaney had been attacked in his own house by the police, and the district inspectors kept hitting his stick on the floor, timing it. Sammy was attacked. The wife was hurt. A man called Bud was injured. And another neighbour called Harkin. So Sammy died about 3 or 4 months later. And I mean, I knew Sammy just the Elodie, and he would talk to me about civil rights and that. It was a massive funeral. I mean, it was, people just didn't believe this was happening. Like, we were all learning the hard way, we never thought that, like in 5th October, I say, oh, there's no need for anybody to have a helmet on you. This is now 1968, but I kept my helmet on anyway. But we went up to meet the top people in the RUC up at their headquarters, Lisburn, as far as I remember. And we met the top men, Peacock and Shillington, the two top men. The wee man I drove was a taxi man called Frankie, still about town. He's very elderly now, so a lot older than me at the time. But he's still out walking about. As a man said, if you're walking, you're talking, then you're fucking flying, But anyway, we went up anyway. The orange men wanted to march down past the bottom of William Street, and it was as if they were walking. They were just. This was a coat trailing exercise, and the ordinary people took great exception to that. So we went up, we met Shillington and all the rest, and they said, "This way, gentlemen," and after shaking her hand and all the rest, of course, we're not going to refuse to shake her hand, like, we're just a gesture, like. And they said, the taxman wait for you. I said, no, everybody's equal in our movement. This taxman must come on with us. He's not going to the meeting. And he says, well, I said, we don't go on without the taxman. We treat it the same as us. And I said, even though we're not going to the meeting. Oh, well, he says, they discuss it. We'll take him to the kitchen, give him some date. So the taxman was very impressed with this. He keeps bringing up and telling his friends about this. The meeting was totally unsatisfactory. We were put in very clear language. We don't want this to happen. If it does happen, the point is that there's going to be a lot of eruption in Derry, especially after what your men have done in the Devaney household. And the two of them did hang their head for a short time, listening to us, And I was, of course, as usual, I was doing most of the talking. and but the other men spoke up too. So I come back and reported. They wanted a joint statement, and I said no, because I know how the establishment work. They would put out a statement and say we had a very cordial meeting, and and items were discussed, but it wasn't giving us what we wanted. We didn't want that parade walking through, passing right through the bottom of William Street and on down the Strand Road. And the word came back the parade was going ahead. I reported back to the movement. My job in the movement was education and communication officer. So it was decided, and I had made it quite public a few years ago. The Republican Army, right, which I would remember the brigade staff, had decided that we would resist the Orange Order marching through, not because they were unionists or anything else, because they wore sashes, but this was a cultural and sectarian exercise to assert more or less their right to walk anywhere in this city, especially after it happened. And the Sammy Devaney issue was a major issue, and that when the police were out everywhere, so the march was attacked. And the point is, I agreed with that attack on that march. I mean, there was nobody shot. There may have been a few injured on both sides, but at the end of the day, there was more injured after the Battle of Bogside started. But that was the start of the Battle of Bogside. The march went ahead. The Minister of Home Affairs, Willie Craig, was on the far right of the unionist spectrum, and he was out to get rid of O'Neill, and so was Paisley. And O'Neill, I'm not saying O'Neill was a great liberal, but I would say that if O'Neill, some of his reforms, had been resistant to his reforms, we might well be in a totally different situation. But my job after the Battle of the Bogside started. Communications were very important, that we could be able to communicate with the people. So we had Radio Free Derry set up. I had very little to do with that, but I knew what was happening. First of all, it was held in Welton Street. I'll not name the man still living. It's not name his house. If he's ever interviewed, he'll limit it himself. And then it was moved on to multi-story flats. Well, my job in the movement was education and communication officer. So my job was turning out, getting posters, helping me get posters printed on silk screen, and leaflets, barricade bulletin, all the rest. And then at that stage, it set up the Derry Citizens Defence Committee that operated from number 10 Weston Street, Paddy Bogside's house. So the people who were on that committee could speak for themselves. But we remained outside of the committee. Not all of us. There was some Republicans in that committee. Sean Keenan actually was the chairman. Although people always believe that Paddy Bogside chaired the real chairman was Sean Keenan. He was a lifelong Republican. He spent 16 years in jail, not all in one go. He was interned so often. 16 years without charge or trial under Special Powers Act. And the point is that was one of the aims of the civil rights movement, to get rid of the special powers, bring in equal vote, a point system in housing, the abolition of the old Dairy Corporation, the decommission of the B specials. I mean, the list, freedom of speech, right? Freedom of assembly. The list is very clear. A lot of people forget what civil rights were all about. It wasn't just about marching, it was about those basic demands. So my job was going around the barricades on a bicycle. And I didn't own the bicycle. There was outside a shop. And I went in and said to the woman, who owns that bicycle? She said, you own up the street. I said, would he loan it to me? She said, what for? And I told her. Well, I'll you up and I'll talk to him. And I said, Do you agree with civil rights? So I am great. I'm a civil rights man. Good, good, good. See that bicycle of yours? I need that bicycle. He said, what for? He says, I recycle around all the barricades. Will you tell everybody that's my bicycle? I said, that'd be a very unwise thing you do. It is, you end up getting on the Special Powers Act. I'm no tout, it is, right? So that was my job, reporting back to Free Dairy Radio. Well, coming along Foster's Terrace one day, in those days, just opposite a big gas yard wall. And there was an old woman standing like with an apron on her, and she was standing with an apron. And she had big pocket apron. She probably did big snuffy hanky, snuffles. And I remember my bicycle cycling by, and I thought she was waving at me. And I thought you're going to. Now, remember, in the back room as the CS gas, and the rubber bullets were flying, and people were being battened, and God knows what. And the din was terrible. And Foster's Terrace wasn't far from Agro Corner, Roswell Street. And I thought you're going to see me. How's the revolution coming on? She said to me, 11230 Newmarket. She thought I was a bookies runner. Because in those days, the bookies shops used to send their men out in bicycles. We look at back now, like with all this modern technology, it's hard to believe. Well, that was the last thing I knew bugger all about horses. But then you reported back how more people needed in the barricade in Craigan or somewhere. Or they're running out of food or something. And then you get on the radio, them would announce we need more people in Craigan. And so the communication side worked out very well. And then they started their own postal service inside Derry and things like that. So it's amazing what the ordinary people can do. They can create their own apparatus of administration, in spite of what the state does. In fact, they can an alternative state. During the War of Independence, the Republicans had their own courts and all the rest. But I was out there for right through the 72 hours, and usually sleep at the top of the flats. And sometimes, you look back and say, hey, where did I go for something to eat? Or where did I go to the toilet? And then I remembered, that wee woman, Mrs. Shields, my Shields, you would know him. She would feed me like, well, these people had very little. They were on the dole. And although the shirt factories were going in those days, and she used to take on shirts and work on her own time. But the point is that, and who fed me, and then where to go to the toilet? These wee practical things years later you started thinking about. But she was some character. She was a great. Of course, her husband was the officer commandant of Derry in 1920 of the IRA. And he's mentioned a book called The Four Glorious Years, but he's also mentioned a song called The Derry Riots. I'll sing you a bit of it, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
It's called The Derry Riots. My voice isn't as good as it used to be. Down at the foot of Bishop Street, mid a mass of dark green foliage, there stand some stately buildings, they're called St. Columb's College. During the Derry riots, the soldiers wanted fun, and so they turned upon us a mighty Lewis gun. Not to be undone it, death came with every plea. The brave Sinn Féiners defended, led by brave Patrick Shields, that leader who had just returned from far famed Mountjoy jail, was very weak from hunger strike, but his brave heart did not fail. The fighting was long, many nationalists died, and oh, the death they died shall be until the end of time old Derry's greatest pride. Surely the day will come again when all Ireland it is free, and the green and white and gold will wave over Derry and the seas. That's it.
Why don't you have a little drink of water there? And I've got one more question for you.
Well,
Why do you think it's important to remember experiences like yours and all the other people who played a part in the Troubles?
I think it's very important, especially for the younger generation. A lot of them now are kind of taking their rights for granted. Somehow they're always going to be there. But there are elements in this country who are still trying to nibble away at our rights. Now we haven't had an administration or a Stormont for nearly 3 years over rights. Irish language rights, equal marriage rights, the legacy. It's scandalous what's happening to the people who were abusing institutions run by the church and the state. Scandalous. This was only a matter of days before Stormont folded up. It was agreed. It was only a matter of Stormont had been open another week. Those people had been settled years ago. And then the one thing we never had in the 6 counties, I don't like calling it Northern Ireland. I prefer to call it North of Ireland, or the 6 counties I refer to it as. It is a bill a human rights human rights act. We never had it. Now we've been campaigning for a human rights act for something like, God Almighty. What would you say? 70. I mean, not me personally, but that's one that we have never had a human rights act. And the thing is that even the right to an equal vote, it wasn't handed to us on a silver platter. We had to go and fight for it. And I do believe that this, that this acceptance, they don't. A lot of people don't understand just exactly that these rights can be undermined, especially now that you have the DUP and the Tories in Westminster and an alliance. And I would say, at the end of the day, we shouldn't depend on politicians. The real parliament of the people is on the streets, you know. And the point is, we achieved a hell of a lot, my generation. Their fathers and their grandfathers and grandmothers were out on the streets and achieved a hell of a lot. Civil Rights Act started because mainly on the housing issue. It was also because the university was stopped from coming to the city by what was known as the faceless men, taking the Coleraine. It was also born because of action of railways. One line run from Belfast, another runs south from Belfast to Dublin. All the lines here in the northwest were cut to ribbons. There was a time you could have gone on a train here and went to Buncrana. People don't understand that. And then the biggest insult of the lot was after the unemployed march and all the rest. They kept telling us there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. We don't have the resources for this. There was no government training centres in Derry. Eventually we got the Unemployed Action Committee. There was a government training centre. Came in. Between 1945 and 1960, say 65, out of a total of about 224 industries coming to the 6 counties, only about 9% came west of the Bann. There was no advanced factories built. No advanced factories. The training, the government training, and all the rest. I mean, we eventually got a bigger training centre in Derry, right? But this town is mainly woman kept this town afloat. They were the economic backbone of the city. But the point is that, you see, people say, oh, they're not interested in politics. But the word politics, if you go back as far as my memories and my history is right, it comes from a Greek word called Paul, Paul. It meant of the people. And people should be interested in politics because it affects every aspect of our lives. Especially in this period of austerity, which I think is totally uncalled for. I mean, we now have people queued up in food banks and all the rest. People, employers being subsidised because they're paying the very low wages. Um, the whole austerity thing was to save the banks and keep them going, but the poorest people were suffering. It was it was as if the poor were being squeezed to keep the rich in their positions. So all right, I'm quite proud of the fact I've always described myself as a socialist Republican. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I want people to learn from our struggles. I want them to realise that so many things in life do come down to politics. When I think of the times when we went out and got our heads kicked in and battered in the police barracks for the demand of one person, one vote, and then I stand there listening to people saying, "Look, I'm not going to bother to vote," and they might only live a few yards away. And there's times of despair, but then I'm full of hope. If you have to be optimistic. But it's the young people really. I mean, the older people go out and vote. They realise what we had to suffer to get that. And I just say that unless people are politically conscious, and it's not just a matter of saying, "Oh, this thing is right," but when you say this thing is wrong, then you have to do something about it. You're morally bound to do something. You just can't turn a blind eye and say, "Oh well." So I look forward to the day that the younger people, right, and I think the hopelessness in this city borders on despair among a large section of younger people. They've lost kind of hope, and that's the whole drugs. And I've been working since 19 with a group called the Detox for Dairy campaign since 2013, and we have helped people go for rehab. These are the word drug addict is a terrible thing. The point is these people need medical treatment, not just locked up. There must be a humane medical answer than just. And I've met some of these people, and it really hurts me every time I look at the paper. Some fine-looking young men, and sometimes young women, and sometimes middle-aged people taking their own lives over the river. And the Foyle is the second fastest river in Europe after the Volga. You have no chance of going there. And the Foyle doesn't discriminate against black or white or green or orange. It's a cross-community thing. Families are being wrecked by it. They mightn't say too much because of shame of drugs and all the rest. I really believe that the whole question of legalisation of certain drugs has to be taken seriously. To get rid of all the drug barons and the crime. I mean that cocaine and all the rest that comes into the city, and the heroin and heroin is now. It's hard to believe, but it's here. It's here. I never thought I'd ever think that we would go beyond like ecstasy or smoking the weed. But when they don't know what they're taking. And the point is that those people are only interested in profit. Money. Money is their god. So I'm hoping that there'll be a new dawn. That part of that new dawn that they will see the rays of the past coming to warm the present, and possibly people like me, Eamon Cooper, who's now just passed on, John Hume is not well, and I would say a lot of the work that the old civil rights veterans put in, that the stress of all those years is returning to haunt us. It may take a long time for that stress to catch up with you. But the point is that those of us that are living, we've just commemorated the 50th anniversary. And I believe that if people stand together, have a clear program of what they want to achieve, articulated, communicated, and if need be, return to the streets on any issue or all issues. And everyone has a part to play. The churches, right across the trade unions, the women's groups, the gay liberation movement, all progressive forces. Like that's a hand there. Like they're all separated, but when they're brought together, that's solidarity. And I would say we shall overcome someday.